Now, I warned you in previous updates that, again, if we did get the right shoulder, we could either get a bigger sell-off or we might just come back down a little bit lower levels. Again, we might have an ABC move. We got these bullish signals back over here, but then we had momentum flip right here with this bar. I talked about that previously. I told you the risk is that we form a bullish divergence with momentum here. I think that is likely. We did move slightly lower by 100 points, $100 lower than the low over here. At this 91,315 area, we moved about $100, exactly $100 actually, below that level. So again, if we do continue a little bit lower, or even right now you've got a divergence, but if we do continue a little bit lower, watch the trend line I'll be showing you in this video. We're reaching it already with the log scaling, but the linear scaling, I believe it's a linear, we haven't quite reached it yet. We still may, but I told you to be watching to see if a divergence develops if we don't go into the positive region with momentum. So again, we'll be watching to see how it unfolds, and we'll be watching our 100 period moving average. And again, we talked about this possibility, and I told you that we had the bullish signal here in the green cloud. Just told you to watch and see if those levels held. Well, on Thursday, we took them out. We took out the cloud, and you got the sell signal with the cloud, and the momentum signals continue. So the risk is that we still continue lower, or the big risk is that we see the head and shoulders play out and go down to $74,000 or $75,000. The target of the head and shoulders plays out, which I'll be talking about in this video. And with that, we saw the balance of power in the daily time frame go back into negative territory here with the Thursday session there, and it's still negative here with the Friday session. We'll see, do we sell off with the jobs report, or do we try to find a bottom? We did move lower. Again, it is possible that we go get a bigger push closer to the 100 period moving average, or the trend lines I've been talking about, in a larger ABC formation. But I do think we are in wave 4, and I do think 120 to 125,000 is likely going to be reached. Here we saw the momentum line flip right back to bearish with the Thursday session. So again, we'll be watching to see what happens. Again, the swing move is showing a neutral in that we've gone sideways. We're forming this head and shoulders. If we start getting a bigger drop, we start seeing more and more signals turn bearish. Should we get a bigger drop down to 74 or 75,000? But again, I think even if we get a bigger sell-off, I do think you'll see new all-time highs. Maybe we just go a little bit lower towards trend lines I'm talking about in this video and towards the 100 period moving average, and then try to rebound. Watch the video all the way through and you'll see that. Here, we've just been in this trading range, really just going sideways, forming this head and shoulders. Will it give us a bigger sell-off down to 74 or 75,000? Or do we just go a little bit lower and then attempt a recovery? So we'll be watching to see how it unfolds. We did get these bullish signals over here. So far, it's only given us a bounce. Now momentum shifted back to bearish, so the risk is we get a bigger sell-off. But watch the trend lines, watch the 100 period moving average, watch the video, and you'll see what I'm talking about. We saw signals try to flip bullish here, tried to get back into the positive region of the cloud, but turned right back down. So again, we're back into the negative region here. It failed, but again, a bullish divergence could be under construction right here. And so we will be watching to see, and it may not be done yet if we go a little bit lower. We're trying to rebound as we start the Friday session. We got the jobs report. We'll see what happens with that. We'll see if we recover or if we sell off with it more. Trend line below, which you'll see in this video, that's with their linear scaling. The signals tried to turn bullish here, and it was just the counter trend again, possibly that right shoulder if we end up getting a bigger sell-off, the target level being the 74, 75,000 area. Again, as I've said, we turned positive right here, but now we're going back into the negative region. We could be forming bullish divergences. We could be forming bullish divergences at just a little bit lower levels. Again, if you watch the video all the way through, we're hitting this trend line from these lows over here with the log scaling, but with the linear scaling, we're not. And if we go a little bit lower, we could see a move down here closer towards this area right here of the trend lines right here of support, or the trend line right here, or both. We may move closer to that 100 period if we break the horizontal support. So we'll be watching. Could be forming this to bullish divergence. So again, even if we go a little bit lower, this would take us, if we did go a little bit lower, that would take us down towards the rainbow cloud level of support, where we've been bouncing off of the rainbow cloud at the weekly time frame many occasions throughout the run-up to 2022 low. Again, the risk is that we get a bigger sell-off and we move back to the 100 or the 200 period moving average. But again, if we can see a bullish diversion set up and recycle back up, then again, you could end up going to new highs and setting up a larger divergence. If we go negative and remain in negative territory with the oscillator, you can get a bigger sell-off. Simple as that. It's all about support and resistance. We're going to get the jobs report tomorrow. We'll see if we get more volatility with that, or do we get a rebound? If we get a rebound, do we get more volatility that still ends up taking us a little bit lower in the coming days ahead? Or do we get it with the jobs report? That is if we break horizontal support. Big risk is we go down to 75,000. Smaller risk if we go a little bit lower, have a larger ABC type of a move under construction, and that we try to bounce surrounding the 100 period moving average. Trend line of support with the linear scaling. There's a very good chance whenever this is done, we're going to try to move to new highs. See what happens with the jobs report. By the time you're listening to this, maybe we have the jobs report already, and we'll be watching to see what Bitcoin does. We'll keep you posted. But I wanted to share those signals because momentum tried to flip bullish. It's flipping back to bearish now, so we'll be watching to see what happens. Rejection with the lower high, we're now seeing some red here. That's giving us risk of a bigger sell-off if we start seeing red and then start seeing this line begin to turn back down. Back above the 50 period moving average, a green line, in order to resume the advance. We tried to get above it and it failed. Some things to pay attention to, because the risk is we get a bigger sell-off, 74 or 75,000. Our risk is that we just go back towards the 100 period and the trend line with the linear scaling, which I'll talk more about in this video. Please support the channel with the link directly below. That allows me to be able to provide you this information. If you like the charts, you like the indicators, let me know that by supporting the channel today. The Bitcoin risk model. The Bitcoin trend is back to bearish, so that's remaining that way after a potential counter trend here. And then we saw risk line turn back to bullish or bearish, and after trying to turn bullish, and so did risk environment. We moved back to a risk on environment, but then we quickly turned back to risk off with this sell-off. So right now we're in a risk off environment. We'll be watching if we get an ABC move of a more shallow sell-off. Then can this revert back to bullish? If we get a bigger dump, it's going to remain bearish in a risk-off environment, and the Bitcoin trend will remain bearish. So just some things to be watching. But Bitcoin is currently in a risk-off environment. Again, signals tried to turn back to bullish, but then quickly failed. Here the cloud, it turned back to bullish, and then it quickly failed. We drop back below the cloud. So again, we'll be watching if we try to find a bottom as we're drifting a little bit lower, or again, do we have to get a bigger sell-off? Maybe see the head and shoulders pattern play out the target level, again, 74, 75,000 before attempting a recovery. And again, the cloud flipping back to bearish in the daily time frame with the Thursday sell-off. Again, the risk is that get a bigger sell-off towards 74,000. Again, our 200 period coming in near that level. Should we get a bigger dump? Okay, should the head and shoulders play out? That's where we're going, towards the 200 period moving average. If we get a divergence right here at just a little bit lower levels, then again, you could see oscillators form divergence and turn back into the positive region. But right now, oscillators tried to go positive. We got that possible right shoulder, and they reverted right back into the negative region. So are we either forming a divergence like I talked about with momentum and here on other oscillators, or does the head and shoulders play out and we start moving back towards that 200 period moving average? That's the risk right now. Support break, the neckline of support. Even if it breaks, we still may try to find support at a little bit lower levels, and our 100 period moving average is directly below that. And again, the trend line with our linear scaling coming in this area as well, as I'm talking about in this video. Now, the weekly time frame at the moment, Bitcoin's testing the 10-week moving average, not seen here, but this is a 20-week moving average. As long as we hold above the 20-week moving average, Bitcoin can go higher. You start losing that 20-week moving average, then Bitcoin is in trouble. And signals tried to turn back to bullish, and again, it failed, and we went lower now. So again, here we had a divergence play out on signals. Are we getting a larger divergence right now, or at a little bit lower levels? Again, could we just get a little bit more of a sell-off here and try to recover, or do we get a bigger sell-off and see the head and shoulders to play out and take Bitcoin towards 74 or 75,000? Watching the jobs report tomorrow, I should say today, for the Bitcoin session here. See if we get a bigger sell-off with that or attempt a bigger rebound. Right now, Bitcoin on Friday so far is attempting a rebound. Okay, Bitcoin just closed. The Thursday session has just started. The Friday session a couple of hours ago. I was watching to see how we would close to see if it would change any of the signals as we're continuing to hover at Q support. More about that in a moment. Tomorrow, or as we now start the new Friday session for Bitcoin, we're going to get the jobs report. And again, this could be a market mover. Usually inflation data and the jobs report often can move the stock market, and we'll see if that impacts Bitcoin at all. One other thing, we're going to get the consumer sentiment, which is already warning that recession is coming. It's been very, very weak. I'll talk more about that in my stock video likely over the weekend, along with the jobs report. I'll probably be talking about both of those economic reports. And then remember, next week we're going to get the inflation data. On Tuesday, we'll get the PPI wholesale inflation, and that ticked up last month, so we'll be watching that. And then on Wednesday the 15th, we'll be getting the consumer price index, which came pretty much in line with expectations, the last report that we got. So we'll be watching. Again, I do expect the inflation data will tick back up. Fed is still going to cut rates. It's going to end up being bearish for the market because we're going to have a recession. So just something to pay attention to. How does the jobs report tomorrow and the inflation data next week, how does all that impact the stock market, and how does it impact Bitcoin? We'll be watching. Now, on Wednesday, the market was closed, by the way, on Friday, or on Thursday, pardon me, for National Day of Mourning for President Carter. But on Wednesday, we had another big outflow day on the spot Bitcoin ETF. And as we hit resistance, trend lines that I was talking about, we started seeing distribution with the Bitcoin spot ETF. Again, we got to be able to clear that resistance to be able to go higher. This over so you can see it a little bit better, cutting it off a little bit for you. Sorry about that. Again, here is the peak on Bitcoin mid-December, okay? And we began right after that to begin to see some distribution, some big outflows of the Bitcoin ETF here. And again, we had the rebound back up, and we've got this head and shoulders, and some inflows came back in, and then now we're seeing more outflows here. And now, again, we're now into the Friday session. We're rebounding back up. We're up 0.76%. But for the Thursday session, we were down again, another 2.65%. We had sold off on Wednesday 1.94%, but again, much more lower levels, and rebounded for that session, continued the selling on Thursday, and again, still hovering near this level of support. Now, the low over here at this first initial leg down, the low over here was at 91,315. The low on Thursday was 91,215, so we took it out by about $100. Moving 91,215. 91,315. So we did get a lower low there. And again, we had the rally back up off of the, well, first of all, we had the topping tail and we got the gravestone doji. That was confirmed. And we got the follow through. We saw this push down to key support. I've talked about the support area at great length and detail. We ended up dropping nearly 16%, 15.70%. We formed a bullish falling wedge. We broke out. We got back above the moving averages, popped above the 20, but couldn't stay above it. But we came up here and I talked about a possible head and shoulders that could end up giving us a bigger sell-off. Now, this head and shoulders could take us down to 75,000 or so. At the low here at 91,000, the peak up here at 108,000, 17,000. That could take us down to 74 or 75,000. It measures down to about 74,000 or so, but Bitcoin sold off by nearly 16%. It rebounded back up, got the right shoulder, rebounded back up by almost 12.5% from this low up to this high, and then we reversed over the last three previous trading days. We gave it all back, and from that high we ended up dropping 11.20%. So a 12.5% rally up, and then again coming down here from that lower high, it was 11.20%. That's where we're at. We got the head and shoulders. If we start breaking down again, using the VWAP support area I've been talking about, then again, you could get a bigger sell-off. I still think you'll move to a new all-time high with Bitcoin, but you've got this pattern here. Again, it's got to get confirmation and a follow-through. So we got to break down here, and if we do that tomorrow with the jobs report, then again, we could get a bigger sell-off with Bitcoin as low as $74,000, $75,000. That's where the pattern measures to. Bitcoin's testing VWAP support. If we bounce off VWAP support, we could try to go higher. We did move slightly lower, though. I think we have an ABC move, and it's possibly not done yet if we go to lower levels, because we did move to a new low again. Watching to see, would it be a higher low, possible wave 1 or 2, or would we get a lower low, meaning we're still forming wave 4, in my opinion. Risk is that we go lower. I'm watching this VWAP support area, and again, you've got this horizontal support that we're still trying to bounce off of right there, and we put that in black so you can see it really well. We're trying to bounce off this horizontal support level. We still have a little bit more support, just a little bit lower, but if we break this area, the blue rectangle, there's not much in the way of support. I have the different VWAP support levels from these lows back over here, but not much in the way of support. And then you would have target level of the head and shoulders would be at the 75,000 area. Remember, this peak over here was 73,700 and some change. So if we lose this area, again, the risk is that we come back to that level or to the breakout point here where we broke out and back tested if we get a bigger dump. But the target level would be just above this area here at the 77,000 area or so, 75,000. So basically, the measurement of the pattern is just above the high from over here. That's pretty much what it is. So if it does play out, that's the risk. Again, even if we don't reach it, we could still get a bigger dump. But again, as I've said, I still expect Bitcoin is going to make new all-time highs eventually, and we'll see if we wrap it up here at key support and resume the advance, or if we have to get a bigger sell-off. But I do think Bitcoin will go higher as long as the weekly signals remain bullish. The bulls are in control, and I think that we can build momentum to still clear that overhead resistance we turned off of, that I warned you that we would turn off of, the triple diversions that formed on the RSI with this peak over here, and we slammed into major resistance. We talked about all of that back at the top. Watching, does a major high develop there? If we can't make new highs, we pull back and build momentum and clear that level. That's what I think is likely going to be the case. Now, I pointed out we had the triple negative diversions at the top. We were hitting major major resistance in the weekly time frame with our trend lines, with the log and linear scaling in the weekly time frame. We saw a sell-off, came back to support. We moved to extremes with momentum after that negative divergence, that triple negative divergence. And I told you again, we're at support. I told you we were going to bounce. We did. So I told you to watch for a lower high, or if we can get a rally that set up a higher low and try to get a higher high. Right now we're moving slightly lower here than this low over here. So there's still risk that, again, we have a larger ABC move and it's not done yet. If we get any traction back up, that we have an A, a B, and that we're going to get a C and move closer maybe to this trend line or to the 100 period moving average. Again, it could form a divergence on indicators if that is the case, and come back down and see a divergence develop if we lose this horizontal support area. So I'm watching the trend line, I'm watching the 100 period moving average, and then we have another trend line going back here from the low over here and the low over here, excluding the shadow, just below the 100 period. If we include the shadow, it takes us closer to that 200 period moving average. So just some levels that I'm looking at here on the daily chart, and these trend lines, should we lose this level of support. Now again, if we do see the head and shoulders play out, then again, like I said, the peak at the March high at 73,700, that 74,000 area, that's the target head and shoulders. So again, that's just above the 200 period moving average. So the risk is that we get a bigger drop. What happens, we'll be watching the weekly signals to see what happens to them. But going to be watching the 100 period in this trend line. If we end up going lower and breaking this area, but the sell-off causing momentum to roll over here, but it's still in the positive region. So again, we'll be watching to see if we get a bigger dump. Watch that 100 period moving average. Remember, Bitcoin follows the 100 period moving average. That's coming in at the 86,000 area. Now, I want to point out, this is the linear scaling right here, and the trend line is down here with the linear scaling. If we look at the log scaling, we're coming up and trying to tag it right now. People use linear scaling, some people use the log scaling. I use both. Look at this trend line. This is the linear scaling right here. We're not quite at it yet. Now look at that same trend line, again, from those two lows right here, and we're right at that area right now, and trying to bounce off of it. It's intersecting with the horizontal support. So this is the log scaling. We had the triple negative divergence. We broke down below the 50 area. We tried to get back above it, and we stalled up the 20, and then we went down to support, and we tried to get back above 50 again, and we got a possible right shoulder, and we dropped back below 50 again. This is telling us we're either going sideways or down now. So again, the bulls, if they want to resume the advance, they got to get the give us a rally to get the RSI back above 50. So again, possible trend line bounce here with our log scaling. But if we, again, take this level out, you've got your 100 period moving average near the 86,000 area. These divergences did play out nicely, and now we're going sideways based on what we're seeing here with the RSI. We'll see if we get a bigger dump if support levels break. And watch the trend line in the 100 period if the support level does break, horizontal support does break. But we've got a possible divergence with some of the oscillators going on here. So again, we'll be watching to see what happens with the indicators. Do we form a divergence and turn right back up, get right back into positive territory? Do we get a bigger dump and stay in the negative region here in the daily time frame? We've had this divergence right here give us the bullish MACD cross. Could be forming a larger bullish divergence where we find support in this area near the trend line or a little bit lower at our 100 period moving average. So we'll be watching that. As I've said, again, I think we have a wave 4. I told you it could be an ABC right here, or it could be that this is A, B, and now we get this C move. So again, could see that, or a bigger C move if we get a deeper sell-off. But again, got to be looking to see if we get a recovery once the selling pressure is done. We did move lower, so again, Likely this is still wave 4, and then I think we will get wave 5, but it looks like wave 4 is still under construction to me. I think we'll get wave 5, and that will take us to new all-time highs in the first quarter and possibly in January, as I've said. But I do think that in the first quarter we will reach a new all-time high, and very well could see it happen over the next several weeks here in January. Now, just quickly, momentum in the weekly time frame still bullish here. Right after we hit 52,000, we started moving up off of 52,000, and momentum in the weekly time frame turned bullish in the bull flag. I talked about that, and eventually we got the breakout. We saw the trend signals begin to turn bullish just before that or with that move in the weekly time frame. The bulls are still in control. Still think that Bitcoin, even if we get a bigger sell-off, a bigger pullback, I still think Bitcoin's going to reach the 120 to 125,000 area unless we start seeing all the weekly signals begin to turn back to bearish. Then Bitcoin's in trouble, and the risk is that we put in a top at the trend lines of resistance that I've been talking about, that first tier of resistance above the resistance that we had with this trend line right here. We reached the other trend line that I've been talking about, which just quickly is this trend line from the 2021 low. So we got to be able to clear that level. And again, we may have to build momentum to do that. Do we get a bigger pullback? We'll be watching. But momentum here, still bullish in the weekly time frame. And again, weekly signals all over the place, still bullish. We still have the rainbow cloud, which is support right here in the weekly time frame. Critical mass line, still bullish, still pointing upward. And we still have the balance of power still in the positive region. So the bulls are still in control unless these signals begin to change. We saw momentum flip first, but then we saw things like the rainbow cloud turn back to bullish with the breakout of the trend line. We saw the trend signals begin to flip back to bullish. The balance of power is validating that. So signals remain bullish. I think we're going to reach that upper channel line in the weekly time frame, even if we get a bigger pullback. One thing here to note is the rainbow cloud. Even if we go a little bit lower, it's another level of support just directly underneath, near that trend line that I was talking about in the daily time frame, right above our 100 period moving average. When we reversed from the downtrend, the rainbow cloud acting as support here in the sideways move, it acted as support, and then we went higher and it acted as support, and here it acted as support. Finally, we had that bigger sell-off of 33%, and we ended up seeing the rainbow cloud go from green to red to green to red and back and forth, and finally we got this breakout. So the rainbow cloud has acted as support previously, but we broke it and it turned red. The green cloud, it turned red, but we just went sideways in that flag pattern. So again, I'll be watching the rainbow cloud here in the weekly time frame. It's coming in the 87,000 area. So we'll be watching to see with this sell-off if weekly signals remain bullish. If they do, then the bulls are still in control. Now with the higher low of 52,000, as I said, we saw momentum flip back to bullish in the weekly time frame, and then we saw the cloud flip again with the breakout, the back test. We broke out, back tested, and then the daily time frame, and then the next week we began to surge. So here we are again. Signals remain bullish. The cloud remains bullish. Momentum remains positive. So again, signals in the weekly time frame are still bullish. We're still on a buy signal. Bulls are in control unless that changes. Now again, as we had that breakout, I warned you about these trend lines, and I told you again I expected to move up to them. We were watching to see if we get a reaction off of them. I told you that was very, very likely. This is a trend line from the 2017 high connected to the 2021 peaks. This is our linear scaling. We turned off of it right on the nose there. Got to be able to move to a new high to form a divergence with the linear scaling, which could be up into this trend line to 110,000 or so. If we can clear it, we can go to the 120 to 125,000 area of the trend line and overthrow this one, the trend line with the log scaling. It's possible we have a top here if we start seeing signals all revert back to bearish in the weekly time frame. remain that way, lose the 20-week moving average. Again, watching the channel here with the log scaling, the upper boundary is where I think we're headed here in the weekly time frame. If we can clear the trend line from the 2021 low and that 2017 trend line that I talked about, the trend line, if I zoom out here from the 2021 low right here, this red trend line, if we can get above that and get above the 2017 trend line, then you can come up to this area right here, which is what I think is likely going to be the case. We can get a January rally. I think that's very possible. I do think this is a wave 4 in an ABC type of a move. I think you got a wave 1, a wave 2, a wave 3, a wave 4, probably still under construction here. And then I think we get the wave 5 pushing up into this channel. And I think that will complete Bitcoin's blow off top right around 120 to 125,000 area. Or likely around 122 to 123 to be more exact, right in that area, just eyeballing the trend line. Should we reach it at the end of January? Possibly the first week of February.